Good morning. Nice to see you back again in my flat. Summer's arriving. I've just remembered how hot it gets in my flat in the summer. And so pretty soon you'll be seeing me broadcasting live with my feet in a bucket of water. Let's hope we don't have to stop in for that much longer, because this flat is not made for working in. The latest on lockdown, it's all confusion and alarm about the government's latest guidelines. They're confused, mixed messages about what's going on with lockdown. There's confusion for workers, for parents, for teachers, for people working on public transport. There's no kind of test and trace and isolation of cases in place that would make it logical to reduce the lockdown rules. It really is just reckless, and it's out of line with what they're saying in Wales, in Scotland, and in Northern Ireland. So the Mayor's been very clear on this, the Mayor of London. I want to be as clear as possible. Please, please carry on staying in. Please, employers, don't force anyone back to work at all. Let's keep suppressing this virus. Let's get the cases down. Let's get tracing in place before we take any more risks with our people. I have one request to the Mayor of London too. We are seeing an increase in traffic already, and we need to see the cancelled congestion charge, the cancelled ultra low emission zone charges brought back in as soon as possible. I really want to see him act on that. Now, in other summer news, the Swifts are back. The ones at the front came back over last weekend, and then during the last week, my Swifts out the back, they're back in the sky as well. So I have some special photographs that I actually took. These are photographs of my Swifts at the back of my flat, flying in a fantastic fashion through the air. Look at them, they're absolutely beautiful. Live, not live, but really genuinely, my Swifts are back. It's very exciting. So there you go. We've got a jam-packed 20-minute show for you today, and we're focused on sorting out our roads, particularly from a safety point of view. First of all, we're going to screen a short film from the superb award-winning campaigner, Victoria LeBrec, who is a road danger reduction campaigner because she lost her leg in a crash with a lorry while she was on her bike.
I think we could be seeing quite a big increase in serious injury and fatalities because, you know, human error is such a big part of why collisions happen, and if people are changing their routine, then that's quite possibly going to happen in this case.
And we'll be hearing more from Victoria later, and also from this gentleman, Detective Superintendent Andy Cox, who's the head of the Road and Transport Policing Command in the Met Police. He's in charge of safety on our roads, and he investigates road deaths and injuries. He's been appealing to drivers who've been tempted to speed during the lockdown to slow down and keep everyone safe. We'll hear more from him as well. We're asking you questions every week now, and so this week we want to know what you think about reducing our speed limits. Should the government reduce our default speed limits, which means bringing them down to 20 miles per hour on all our residential streets? So many of us walking and cycling around on the roads. This seems like a good thing. My colleague Caroline has written to the Secretary of State about this, so we want to know what you think. So please follow our link here. Go to menti.com, menti.com on your mobile phone. You can submit your answers instantly. It doesn't take a second. Put in the code 427836 this week to answer our question about reducing speed limits. That's 427836 at menti.com. We'll come back to see what your answers are later. And remember, you can also ask questions during the show using the Zoom chat and on Facebook Live, where our team will do the best to answer your questions. So it's time to welcome back to my sofa, my good friend, Caroline Russell. Hello, Caroline Russell. How are you? How are you this week?
I'm doing very well this week, thank you.
Excellent. So another area of policy you've been on before to talk about small businesses, and another area of policy where you're a proper expert is roads and road danger. tell us about what you've seen. What have Transport for London been telling you about traffic during the lockdown?
Well, I think the biggest thing has been this map in traffic. The lockdown came in, it's been down at about sort of 36% of normal traffic levels, which is a huge drop. And I think what's worrying is that we're beginning to see more and more traffic coming back to our streets, and we need to make sure that we keep any street space available for those essential journeys, the emergency services, all the deliveries that are happening while we're all staying at home, and that we don't end up with our roads just filling up again with all the everyday traffic. Because if we get everyone who usually takes the tube gets in a car, we'll have total gridlock and really bad air pollution rising up again, which is not what we want while we're going through a respiratory pandemic.
And you've said the same thing as me just then. You've asked the mayor to bring back the ultra low emission zone charges, the congestion charges. We need traffic reduction measures to keep a lid on this potential increase in traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yesterday I called on the mayor to bring back the ultra low emission zone and the congestion charge. Completely understand. They took them out as an emergency measure to make sure that key workers could get to hospital to do their shifts and didn't have to use public transport. But I think now that we're seeing more people with these mixed signals from the government, more people thinking it's okay to get out and go around by car, then we absolutely need measures to make it, to reduce the amount of traffic on the roads. Otherwise, I mean, as I said, we're just going to have complete gridlock.
Yeah. So what about road danger? What do you know about what's happened with that during the lockdown period?
Well, I've just seen the figures for the early figures for the numbers of people killed and seriously injured on our roads since the lockdown started in March. And there have sadly been 14 people killed on our roads during that period. Whereas the same period last year, there were about 21 people who were killed. So that's about a kind of, it's down about 33% on last year, which is kind of similar to the amount of traffic reduction that we've got. But what we don't yet have are the numbers of people who have been seriously injured. And certainly what we're hearing from the police and the emergency services is that they're really worried by the number of serious injuries that are happening on our roads. And this is due to very extreme speeding that's going on.
Right, so let's bring on our other guests. Thank you, Caroline. We'll come back to you in a bit. And first of all, we've got a video here from Victoria LeBrec. Let's switch over and watch Victoria has to say about road danger now.
Hi, my name's Vicky LeBrec. I'm the campaign coordinator for Road Peace, which is the national charity for road crash victims. We support people that have been seriously injured or people that have lost someone in a road crash. And I kind of came to working for Road Peace because I was involved in a very serious crash myself. I was run over by a skip lorry in 2014 while cycling to work and lost my leg as a result of the crash. I think one of the biggest things that we've seen in conversations with the police is the people that are driving are speeding a lot, and they've seen some crazy speeds in kind of 20 mile per hour areas and 30 mile per hour areas. So that's putting people at risk. And I'm not too sure of the exact figures to date, but I know that I think it was the week before last, since lockdown had started, and in that same point, this time last year there'd been 12 deaths on London roads, and this year there'd been 9 deaths in that same period, which is really tragic, really, because you think with traffic being down so much and people not leaving the house and not going around doing their day to day, that we wouldn't be seeing any fatalities or serious injuries, but sadly that's not the case. And the big thing now is what's going to happen to transport when lockdown is eased and as people start getting back to normal and start trying to move around more and commuting. I think there's potential for amazing change to happen, but there's also potential for things to go really wrong. I think they're predicting people cycling 10 times more people cycling than before. I think there's going to be a lot more people walking as well. And that's got the potential to cause problems, because if if the roads are emptier in some cases, and you've got more people walking, more people cycling that maybe weren't used to doing it before, and you've got drivers speeding still, and there's changes to the road layouts, I think we could be seeing quite a big increase in serious injury and fatalities, because human error is such a big part of why collisions happen. And if people are changing their routine, then that's quite possibly going to happen in this case. So there's been an announcement to have some quite big infrastructure changes, or temporary infrastructure changes, to allow more people to walk and cycle. And that's part of the street space plan that the Mayor and TfL have announced, which is great. But I think traffic police have got quite a big role to play in terms of keeping the roads safe as well. I mean, they've been doing some fantastic work during lockdown to catch people speeding, because there's been such a big increase, which is really good. But as we come out of lockdown, I think the main thing for me would be if Transport for London and if the Mayor are encouraging and recognising that more people are going to walk and cycle, and that's definitely the best way that people are going to have to get around, then we need to make sure that the enforcement keeps those people safe. So I think that the key thing for me would be to get more traffic police officers, and also making sure that they're catching the speeding drivers, but also some of the other risky behaviour that drivers have, in terms of close passing. That's a big one. And also at junctions, I think other police forces have done this, where they'll prosecute drivers for speeding near junctions, for careless driving or dangerous driving, because we know that that's where most people, you're more likely to be in a serious collision at a junction. So I think things like that would be really good to see from the Transport Police. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Victoria, for recording that for us. Caroline, you do a lot of work with Victoria and other road campaigners. Is what Victoria's asking for there right? Is that what everyone's saying?
Oh, completely. I mean, we're hearing about terrible extreme speeding going on at the moment. Someone was doing 73 in a 20-mile-an-hour recently, 93 miles an hour in a 30 mph limit place, and someone was caught doing 134 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit place. I mean, these kind of extreme speeds lead to catastrophic crashes. And, Victoria has made absolutely, she's such an amazing example of someone who has come through a terrible crash, but with a completely life-changing injury, losing a leg. And it's, these are the consequences. This is what happens when people don't pay full attention to safety on the road. And absolutely, we need to have more, we need more people to pay attention and drive at the right speed, because actually the emergency services shouldn't have to do a whole load of extra enforcement of people breaking speed limits at this time when we're all working together to try and reduce the pressure on the emergency services. But absolutely, we do need more enforcement, because so many people are behaving selfishly when they get behind the wheel.
Yeah, no, well, it's a good time to remind everybody to fill in our Menti question about whether or not you support bringing down the national speed limits. Just the code for that is at menti.com, menti.com, 42 78 36, 42 78 36 to answer our question there about speed limits. Caroline, back to what Victoria said about enforcement of other things than speed. Can you tell us what close passing is and what's should be done about enforcing against that, why that's so dangerous for cyclists?
Yeah, well, close passing is when you're riding your bike and someone in a car decides to overtake you when they're passed safely. And it's, it's very often, if you're riding a bike, if you hit a pothole, you have to swerve, and sometimes you have to swerve quite suddenly to go around it. So people driving past you too close, it's a really dangerous thing to do. And I think maybe some people in cars just don't realise how dangerous and how frightening it is when someone drives past you that close. Now, the police are doing some brilliant work enforcing close passing. They're actually cycling along themselves in ordinary clothes with cameras on their helmets. And if they record someone close passing, then they have someone else come past and overtake and catch up with that driver that's done the close pass, and they show them the video evidence, and they kind of, I think they really raise awareness, but also I think they're prosecuting people for this very dangerous behaviour.
Thank you very much. Well, that leads very nicely into hearing from Detective Superintendent Andy Cox. We put the points that Victoria made to him, and here's a section of what he told us.
Hello, I'm Andy Cox, Detective Superintendent. I lead Vision Zero on behalf of the Metropolitan Police. That is our road safety programme of work across London. I've led that programme of work since January 2019, but like anybody, at the moment life is particularly challenging. Since the lockdown, obviously the traffic volumes changed, the environment in which roads policing operates has changed, and I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you by this video message today. We've enforced over 4,000 speeding offences compared to over 2,300 in the same period last year. In relation to the extreme speed, it's 1,600 offences compared to just 600 the previous year. So the same amount of officers doing the same amount of, or the same type of activity, and the extreme speeding has significantly rose as a percentage of our overall speed. So some 41% of our overall speed in the lockdown period this year compared to just 29% of all speed enforcement the previous year. 163 miles an hour in a 70, 134 in a 40, 110 in a 30, 73 in a 20. So you can see the type of speeds we're confronting. In lockdown, we've lost 10 people lost their life in London. Lots have been seriously injured. It is down on the same period last year quite significantly. The fatality rate is not down as much as the traffic volume is, so they should obviously equate, but it doesn't. And those serious end of collisions are absolutely, in my professional opinion, obviously there's a lot of cases still live at the moment, a lot of those cases are linked to speed. The risk of speed to people's life, it devastates families, it devastates individuals. I personally, one of the jobs I have is to oversee all the collision investigations that are fatal or life-changing injury investigations in London. I actually chair the national group as well, so I see what's happening around the country, and I therefore come into contact with lots of people who are left devastated because they're bereaved, they've lost a family member, or devastated because they've now got a permanent disability. And I think so many people, the driving culture is very complacent in the sense that that nobody thinks it will happen to them. As I said, we lost 10 this year. Every year we've lost over 100 people in London through a collision, fatality, before we start talking about the serious injury section. And nationally it's towards 1,800 last year. So a real significant threat to us. And of course the impact then is to the emergency services, to the NHS. The NHS are going to be busy dealing with COVID-19. We think it's really, really important to send a clear message of support for the vulnerable road user. We are absolutely committed to Vision Zero, which is our aspiration with the Mayor to eradicate killed and serious injuries by 2041. We know there's going to be a rise in walking and cycling. We want to protect that. We encourage people to report headcam footage to us, which we tackle dangerous drivers in support of cyclists. We do patrol zones where we look at junction moving. So, for example, we know there's risks around people pulling away from junctions. So we are there, we do enforce offences. So my big plea and urge is that everybody watching this video takes the time to think about their own driving. It takes the time to think about those who they love, their family, their friends, their colleagues, who they know might speed, or they're in the car when they do speed, and is to ask them to slow down and drive within the limit as well.
So thank you, Detective Superintendent Andy Cox there for recording that response for us. Caroline, he's making a plea at the end there for people to talk to their friends and family about their speeding. The question of speed limits, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's just saying the speed limit is reduced won't necessarily reduce crashes, but it's about the environment. It's about making what's socially acceptable clearer. Is that what you take from what you said at the end? And what about those figures as well about extreme speeding?
Well, I mean, the extreme speeding is absolutely terrifying. He said 1,600 extreme speeding incidents compared to 600 last year, with the same level of policing going on. I mean, that is really, really worrying. And it really made me think of those adverts in the 1970s, maybe into the 80s, about drink drive. Maybe it was in the 1980s actually, drink driving, and that change from when people thought one for the road was an acceptable thing to say to people, and we really need to get that scale of shift around the acceptability or the unacceptability of speeding on our roads, because it's, the consequences are very, very real, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can, particularly at the moment when the emergency services are so stretched, dealing with this this pandemic situation. It's extraordinary that anyone thinks it's acceptable to put their foot down on the accelerator and drive in a way that's dangerous. It's it is properly risky, and it does result in families being bereaved or in people having injuries that completely change their lives.
Yeah, and you can sort of tell from the video there. You said stressed by accident about the emergency services, but yeah, you can tell, like, he has to deal with the actual people and he has to tell people that somebody's died and deal with the families afterwards and support them, and that's obviously affected him. And he, you can tell he feels quite strongly about this. So yes, all power to Detective Superintendent Andy Cox there in terms of helping to reduce the amount of speeding that goes on the roads, and reducing the amount of people, hopefully, we catches doing extreme speeds. You wrote to the Secretary of State for Transport, Caroline. You asked him about reducing the default speed limit, which is the question we've put to our audience as well. I'm just like, answer the right way, please, audience. I hope they do after all this. Sorry. It's a survey, not an instruction. Caroline, what did the Secretary of State say to you? You got an answer back today, I think.
I just got an answer back today, sorry, I'm just going to get back into my Surface Pro.
Good luck with that.
Pull that back up. It's sorry, the screen had gone to sleep. The thing is, I don't think they properly understood what I was suggesting, because I was giving them a way to bring in a change in speed limit everywhere very, very easily. If they just changed the limit from 30 to 20 in urban areas, then that's anywhere where there's you don't have to have any extra signs, you don't have to do any of the kind of consultation that has to happen. So as a measure for this emergency period, it would have been a simple way for him to make this massive change and to help all the local authorities that are trying to keep their residents safe with reduced speeds on the roads. But sadly, no, they've decided that while they do support 20 mph limits, they're not going to bring it in as a change to the legal default limit. So they completely missed the point that I was trying to offer them a lifeline, a way of getting through and changing things very quickly for this emergency situation. And sadly, they missed the point of my letter.
I know, that's really frustrating. And councils are just going to be left having to try and do it in certain areas, in targeted areas, and that's just not, the councils have got enough to do at the moment. So yeah, should we look at the answers to the survey? There were two questions, and it wasn't just about 20 miles an hour in residential areas. It was also about getting the 60-mile-per-hour national speed limit down to 50 on sort of more rural roads that are single carriageway. There's lots more people cycling on those roads now as well, and walking as well. So it's really, you know, that's another question too. So can we see the results, please? So we have no answers. No, we do have answers. So yes, we have everybody. So thank you very much to the people who answered those questions. Thank you for being in favour. Honestly, we you know, we always think we're right about things, but genuinely, this would have been such a good thing for the Secretary of State to have done. So thank you, Caroline. Thank you for coming back. Please look after yourself. I know you've injured your knee this week as well. Careful now is all I can say. And we'll have you back again, I'm sure, to talk about more things. Next week's show, we're going to be talking about youth services, which is a policy obsession of mine. Ever since I got elected to the London Assembly, I've been measuring the cuts in youth services. We'll see how youth work has been coping during the lockdown. So yes, that's the end of today. Thank you once again to my good friend Caroline, to Victoria LeBrec, to Detective Superintendent Andy Cox for responding as well. And thank you to everybody who's been watching. We'll see you next week, and take care of yourselves meanwhile, and please stop in, stay at home. Don't listen to the Prime Minister.